Welcome back to the channel, everybody. I am Auphanim. So I was on stellar.org, and of course they have this celebrating 1 year of USDC on Stellar. But of course, I don't really take a normal way of looking at most things. So of course, a lot of you have read through this already, but if you scroll to the bottom, right, let's just scroll here. There's a little bullet point here that says USDC can be leveraged via anchors. Now, this is where my mind starts to race a little bit, and I start wanting to tear things apart and get to know these companies a little bit better. Of course, we all know Wire, BitGo, Finclusive, but I wanted to take a little bit of a look at Stably. And so looking at things in a more torn apart way, it leads me to finding, at times, it leads me to finding other possibly important parts of information or information sources. Okay, so I was looking at Stably. So then I'm saying to myself, let me go to Stably's website. So we go to Stably's website, and it reads as such: bridging value from the real world to the digital economy, enterprise asset tokenization. So that's the first thing I noticed, but that's not the only thing. Okay, so asset tokenization. So once again, we're talking about everything possibly being tokenized across the blockchain. And it sounds repetitive, but as what we're doing is, as we're moving along, we're seeing more and more companies making this possibility accessible to large corporations, banks, the real estate market. We're seeing the mass adoption of this particular aspect of NFTs on the blockchain, especially Stellar. We're seeing it at a more rapid pace than ever before, which is very, very good. You want all of that value moving across Stellar. So I was very happy to see that Stably offers this. So let's just scroll a little bit deeper here. So it says, power your business with our stable coin as a service solution. So I have felt this myself. I know a lot of people out there, they get very frustrated by hearing about stable coins, USDC. And so what typically happens is you want to hear about XLM because that's what you hold, XLM. And sometimes people, they have this struggle with connecting. How do stable coins, how does USDC affect XLM's pricing? You have to remember, we have to go back to the basics sometimes. I have to do this myself also, so I'm not absolved from this, and recall what the initial purpose of Illumins was, or is rather. And so the initial purpose of Illumins is to keep spam and keep the security of the network at a high level, which makes it an integral part of the system, which means that every account that utilizes the Stellar network must have a certain amount of lumens within it. Now, you can have the minimum, it's only the minimum. So it's like 0.0001 stroops or something like that. So each portion of XLM is called a stroop, I believe. Don't quote me on that, but I believe that's what it is, a stroop. But that's the minimum. Okay, so the more lumens that you have in that account, the more secure it will be. The more lumens you have in that account, theoretically, I could be wrong on this, but I believe this is correct. Theoretically, the more lumens that you hold, the smoother those transactions are going to be. Now, another aspect of that that's really important is the fact that and we're going to get into this because looking at the stablecoin aspect of Stably then led me back to thinking about USDC. And then I hear a lot of dissatisfaction or disconnect with how USDC affects the Stellar network, which then led me to going back to look at a lot of the documents on the Stellar Foundation's website, reading through those, which then led me to what I'm going to get back into now, which is something I was pushing on the channel before, that surge pricing. Okay, surge pricing. But before surge pricing, before I got into thinking about surge pricing, which is where I went next, I was reading a piece, a small blurb before that paragraph, which reminded me of the fact that when there is a lot of network congestion, that those utilizers of lumens who are sending a large amount of lumens, they will come first. So the higher the transaction fee, or the higher the transaction amount, I believe, the higher the transaction amount or transaction fee is one of the two. Someone can correct me and share that up a little bit in the comment section, but the higher the amount, that's who is going to be prioritized on the network. So yes, you have this great free network that you can use, and yes, typically is very low in transaction costs, of course. But when network activity steps up, then those who have the higher transactions or transaction fees, and I think there probably is a direct correlation between the two, as I'm just going off the top of my head right now, those individuals are prioritized. So it behooves people or institutions or banks to move large amounts across Stellar. It behooves them to do so because then they're going to have priority and ensure that their transactions are going through every time with priority, okay? So they're not going to choose the minimum. But what it does when you have, first of all, when you have something like USDC or you have a stably coin on the network, it causes network congestion. That's brilliant on their part. If I'm looking at things the right way, and I believe I am, but maybe somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but when you have USDC, stably coins, all these stable coins using the network, that's going to drive up network congestion. All right. Now that's not taking into account also that they have to hold a certain amount of lumens in their accounts. So that's number one. So more lumens are going to be held in more accounts, which makes lumens that much more, XLM, that much more rare, which obviously if it's more rare because they're being held in these accounts, then that makes the value of XLM go up also. But not only that, but keep in mind, like I said, by having even more lumens, let's say you had like a transaction here, you wanted to move that 1,000 lumens here, 1,000 lumens there, and 1,000 lumens, you know, up to Canada or somewhere like that. Well, maybe that's not a great example, but what I'm saying is you should just move them all at one time. So I believe they had just actually instituted a mechanism where you could do all of that all at once and consider all of the transaction fees as one, or all of the amounts or all of the transactions in one, I don't know how to phrase that, but like in one sending, you send them all out at once. Okay, there's one institution, but you can send a whole lot of things out all at once. And I think you can combine all the transaction fees together. It's something akin to that. Don't quote me on that directly. It's something akin to that. But what it does is it incentivizes institutions and corporations and such to move larger amounts all at once, which obviously is going to affect the network as far as congestion. It's going to give them priority, and also it's going to affect the price of lumens, because then the lumens theoretically will go up. But also what it does that people don't take into account is surge pricing. So when that happens, there's a lot of network congestion because of USDC, all these USDC transactions going through on Stellar, all of these stably coin transactions going through on Stellar. Then you have surge pricing kicks in, and then that boosts the price up even more. That boosts the value of XLM up even more. So now there's even more value flowing through XLM. So you see how this is a genius archetype, if you will. Sorry, I'm like a little struggling for words here, but a genius archetype, if you will, for bringing in large amounts. So yes, it affects, I believe theoretically, stable coins affect XLM in that way, in those myriad of ways, which are sort of like behind the scenes stuff, not so interesting to talk about, you know, but so that's the connection there. So it's a great thing to have more stable coins running across your blockchain. I think it also will be good if people, as much as Stellar is pushing USDC, I don't understand why large institutions wouldn't switch from USDC ETH over to USDC Stellar. You get where I'm going with this? So it's good that they're trying to absorb those markets right now, because with the flood of activity coming to Stellar in the future, with all of these different developments, you can see where that price might go. It's definitely going to have a parabolic run, in my humble opinion. But there is so much going on with the banking coins. Sometimes things like this, it can fall to the wayside. Surge pricing doesn't get discussed because there's hotter topics, and there's things that are just plain out, just much more fun to talk about. But you have real estate values are going to be moving across the blockchain. That's going to cause congestion. That's going to cause prices to go up. Of course, you have CBDCs from commercial banks, cross-border payments, business to business, $75 trillion market, even a piece of that is flowing across Stellar. You have intrabank payments possibly flowing across Stellar. You have national digital currencies that's possibly going to affect XLM. So you have a whole lot of things that might be causing congestion and causing those prices to go up. So When they're talking about the minimum for XLM, it's the absolute minimum, okay, for having your account open. It says the absolute minimum balance for an account is 1 XLM. Each additional entry reserves an additional 0.5 XLM. Remember, that's the minimum. That's not what is prime for moving large amounts of money here and there. That's not what's prime for absolute decongestion of the system. And so I think those things will be explained to people who are from large institutions and such like that. Then let's go into surge pricing and such and base fee. So here on base fee, it says the base fee for a given ledger is determined by dynamically using a version of a VCG auction. When you submit a transaction to the network, you specify the maximum base fee you're willing to pay per operation. So there you have it. Okay, but then it says, but you're actually charged the lowest possible fee based on network activity. Let me say that again. That's very key. You are actually charged the lowest possible fee based on network activity. So if the network activity is shooting through the roof, you have surge pricing, and who knows how that's going to affect the particular price, okay, of XLM, because we haven't gotten to that stage yet where there's mass adoption, there's central bank digital currencies, the payroll rolled out on it. And so, I mean, let's say that goes to a respectable height as far as the price, who knows what it's going to be. You could put your own number on there, but then obviously the lowest possible fee wouldn't actually be as low as what you're seeing here. It would probably be much higher. So then you have this little section here. When network activity is below capacity, you pay the network minimum, which is currently 100 stroops or 0.00001 XLM. Remember, that's the absolute bottom, but that has nothing to do with what the price would go to if there's a high level of activity on a network. So it's in everyone's best interest that there's more activity on the network. So that can come in the form of people utilizing XLM, that can come just outright, that can come in the form of people utilizing USDC, Stablecoin, or any other stable coin that might be issued on the Stellar blockchain. And I'm not sure if Stablecoin is actually running over the Stellar network. I just know that Stably itself is utilizing the network, and so I'm using their stable coin as an example, okay? But I'm pretty sure a lot of different coins will be run over the Stellar network. People will be building tokens, and so that will affect the activity on the network. So, you know, I just thought that was that was pretty interesting, and hopefully will put to rest some people's worries about Stellar Foundation not speaking on XLM more often and how stable coins as such affect the network. I know some of my peers have covered these things, and I definitely covered this in the past, but it's been a long time since we've spoken on things like this. So surge pricing, let's just touch on that a little bit, because that definitely is going to be affected by a high amount of activity on the network. Okay, so let's just read this little blurb on surge pricing. When the number of operations submitted to a ledger exceeds network capacity, currently 1,000 operations per ledger, the network enters surge pricing mode. Remember, I used to rant and rave about surge pricing, which uses market dynamics to decide which submissions are included. Essentially, submissions that offer a higher fee per operation make it onto the ledger first. I can assure you, no bank wants to be last. They want to be first. So they're going to submit offers with much higher fees than normal. Okay, so and then you have a bevy of commercial banks, a bevy of central banks that are considering using XLM for their CBDCs. If should that happen, they're definitely going to submit very, very high end offers per fee. So, and that's in addition to how much they're going to be moving in volume, in average transaction values, all of these little aspects. But all of this is very, very good. So far, there's been a lot of good developments, and as I said before, many other times, the future is definitely bright. And I'm looking forward to hopefully we can get some massive news from XLM in the next few weeks or months or so like that. I wish they would put out a little bit more about what's going on, who's building on the network, sort of like what Algorand does. That would make me much, much happier. So we'll see what happens. But until next time. Wait, I'm messing up my own outro again. Now that you have that information, what are you going to do with it? I know what I'm going to do with it. So until next time, let's get to the money.